Is that plane safe for the president of the United States?
Again, I trust national security folks to make those decisions, even though I think there's a shadow hanging over this president's national security apparatus that has people on both sides of the aisle concerned. For me, it's the rank corruption of it all. I mean, can you imagine that we have a president who is blatantly taking a plane from a foreign nation that does have key emoluments concerns because he knows he's going to be able to take this plane with him when he leaves? This is just part and parcel of a bigger pattern of corruption like we have never seen by the Oval Office that has enriched the president by billions while most Americans are seeing their family budgets really suffer under the decisions he's made.
What should happen to this plane when Donald Trump leaves office? He's supposed to take it with him.
Well, that's to me outrageous and unacceptable. The plane should stay a property of the United States government. This is not the president's personal plaything. He does not understand that the office he holds in public trust. It is not his. He is not entitled to it. He's not entitled to rake in the money he's raking in. When he leaves office, he should not do like he did last time that he ultimately got indicted and convicted on keeping things that don't belong to him but belong to the American people. Donald Trump is unfortunately a president that believes that his office is to get as much ill-gotten gain as he can while he screws over the average American who's paying higher prices for everything from their gasoline to their groceries.
Can I just ask you to elaborate on why you trust that this plane is safe? I mean, the president didn't take it out of Turkey. He left Turkey on the old Air Force One. The reporting that the New York Times has, MS Now has, talks about maybe not having the missile capability that it had before, the missile defense system, or the ability to refuel. So why do you trust the national security apparatus around the president regarding the new one? Or did I hear you wrong?
Yeah, you heard me wrong. I trust national security professionals. I do not trust this president. There's a shadow over his perceptions of national security. I know this because of what they've done to erode our national security in the FBI by putting people like Tulsi Gabbard or our current acting director there. Now, these are all signs that he is eroding national security. I trust professionals who are independent from his corruption. What we have right now is a president that is forcing decisions that are contrary to our national interests, our national security, and even his own safety. And so this is just one episode that is showing that what Donald Trump is all about is corruption and the erosion of American security.
Todd Blanche is set to be nominated, have his nomination hearing this week on Wednesday. What do you want to learn from him?
Well, first of all, I hope that people don't try to dismiss these hearings as partisan hearings. What we have seen with Todd Blanche is conservative after conservative after conservative come out and substantively point out that he's himself corrupt, who's doing the president's bidding and not the leader or the top lawyer for the United States of America. And I'll give you examples from his handling of the Epstein files, people like Billy Crystal, a well-known conservative coming out and pointing out his corruption and how he has violated the federal law that was passed on a bipartisan basis. I've partnered with Senator Cassidy about his slush fund and how deeply corrupt and corrupting that is. And then take the fact that about 16,000 people have left the Justice Department. 1,200 career people appointed under presidents that were Republican and Democrat have wrote an unprecedented letter detailing all of his corruption, his culture of fear, his literally creating pay to play for things like mergers that they're supposed to be overseeing, but him going out to dinner with people who have matters before them and then coming out and going contrary to the recommendations of DOJ lawyers. This is a thoroughly corrupt man being put in the highest law enforcement office in our land, and it is terrifying that he is going to be not only in charge of our national security and our safety like we discussed, but also he's going to be weaponizing the Justice Department like he's been doing under Donald Trump to curry his favor to get this job.
What about the DNI under Bill Pulte?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was saying. The position that he's been putting people in are stunning. These are people that believe that they hold their offices to do Donald Trump's cruel and corrupt bidding. Remember, on the FBI investigating my colleagues, investigating the head of the Fed, investigating in my city. We've seen, I have a congresswoman that's under charges right now that are trumped up for doing her job. Charges brought against my mayor of my city, Ras Baraka, mayor of Newark, that were laughed out of court. They don't care about the law. They don't care about national security. They are using their positions and offices to go after their enemies and, as we saw with the case of the January 6th rioters, to absolve people of doing things like beating police officers nearly to death. But as long as it was for Donald Trump, you're going to get a pardon. So this is a terrifying moment for our nation's history, where you're seeing good faith people on both sides of the aisle coming out and saying this is very dangerous territory. But yet I have complicit members of the United States Senate who are going to just do what Donald Trump says, do his bidding, and perhaps confirm the next U.S. attorney, somebody who has brought disgrace already to that position as an acting head of the DOJ.
Let's talk about elections, because we have some reporting that there's a White House elections task force looking through classified intelligence and various law enforcement documents to find evidence or irregularities in elections. Two officials with knowledge tell us that those documents are expected to be released within weeks. What do you think they're doing here, and what is your and other Democrats' plans to counter it?
So first, what they're doing here is we know their agenda. They've basically told us, and we've seen evidence of that. Donald Trump wants to try to delegitimize American elections. He's taken the election that he lost with his raid in Atlanta, in Georgia, and trying to say that my election, I won my election. We know that there are judges appointed by Democrats and Republicans who have all called that what it is. False, a lie, he is lost in court, but yet he's trying to build this case that not only try to further his lie that he was a winner of an election that he lost, but also to delegitimize American elections on the eve of Democrats regaining the House and the Senate, so he can try to press his case that even any loss that he faces was an illegitimate one. And that is spectacularly dangerous to our democracy. You see other nations' democracies unraveling because some petite autocrat has undermined safe, secure elections or the belief in the public for them. And then the second thing, what are we doing about it? Well, we're already having many emergency meetings to prepare for anything that he is doing to try to undermine our elections. We are already taking him to court and winning most of those cases. Americans should know that we've dragged him to court over and over again and won most of the cases, not all of them. So this is going to be a stress test to our democracy. And the one message voters need to get right now is this should make you more willing to go out and vote than less, more determined to show up to our polls. The answer to this is not surrendering to Donald Trump's what he wants, which is us to lose our faith in our democracy and our elections. The answer to this is more democracy, more engagement, and more involvement.
A moment ago, you talked about senators, your colleagues that are complicit in the administration's efforts to co-opt the Department of Justice, et cetera, Republicans that are going to vote to confirm Todd Blanche. Lindsey Graham would have been one of those Republicans. How do you square that move, that would have been move by Lindsey Graham, with the guy that you say also was one of the great partners that you had in the Senate?
Oh, that's an easy thing to square. Lindsey Graham may have partnered with me to get epic, historic legislation done, like the First Step Act, which liberated thousands, tens of thousands of people from unjust incarceration. But he was also the person I famously fought with. I played football at Stanford. I don't think I banged my head against anybody as much as I banged my head against Lindsey Graham. From the Kavanaugh hearings and fights in judiciary to him allowing complicitly the unraveling of USAID, a program that he helped to build. Lindsey Graham was somebody that I fought like hell with. But if there's anything I learned in the United States Senate, is fight like hell on the battleground, but never give up your determination to find common ground with people. Because when you do, you actually get real things done for American people. I was not sent down here to be a partisan warrior. I was sent down here by New Jersey to deliver. And to do that in the Senate, you still have to find partners on the other side, despite your disagreements with them, despite how damn angry they make you, despite the fact that you had a knockdown, drag-out slug match like I had with Lindsey Often. The value of Lindsey Graham's my friendship with him was that despite the fact we'd fight like hell on one day, he was still willing to sit down the next to do something substantive that could potentially make a difference for people.
So who do you do that with now?
I mean, look, I just told you, Cassidy has been a partner with me in going after the slush fund that Donald Trump wanted to liberate the legal costs of people who beat police on January 6th.
Cassidy's leaving, though.
Cassidy's leaving, and a lot of other liberated Republicans who seem to find this now is a good time to start calling out Donald Trump's egregious behavior. But that said, I've been down here in the Senate for 13 years, have passed massive bipartisan legislation on everything from foreign policy issues to the Ag Committee and getting a lot of these pesticides and other things off of our crops and foods, all the way to just delivering big grants for my home state firefighters, police officers. In fact, one of the first things I got done when I got here in the first days was helping veterans in my state, partnering with then John McCain. So I will always be one of those senators that fights like hell and standing my ground, but never stops the work to try to find common ground, even with unlikely partners. Because when I was coming up, I was inspired by Ted Kennedy and Orrin Hatch, who partnered across partisan lines in some of the biggest divides. I don't think you could find two senators back in that day that were more different, but yet they passed legislation to expand health insurance for our children. That's my philosophy. There are people down here that are just hardened partisan warriors. I'm always going to be somebody that tries to build bridges, find common ground, and get things done. That doesn't make me weaker in the fight. If anything, I'm going to fight like hell for what I believe in. But I'm always going to keep a door open for us to find some common ground to get something done and deliver for the people of New Jersey and our nation.